Do we have anybody zooming today?
4 people.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, we've got Jerry, Jennifer, Terry, and one other person. Do you notice that Jimmy Kelly's back?
Say again?
Jimmy Kelly is back out of the hospital. Yeah, worth a mention. If you have time.
I also saw Phil Boss the other night. Maybe leaving you. I saw Phil Boss the other night, but maybe leaving you. He looked pretty good. You know, Phil Boss. Yeah. I saw him. It's there. And he messaged you guys. Sure, yeah.
You ready, Joe?
We're ready. Recording or video with that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this January 25th meeting of the Rotary Club of West Jacksonville. I'd like to ask Doug Milne to come forward and give our invocation, followed by Mark Eldridge, who's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good afternoon. Let us pray. Father, for this day and all that comes with it, for this meal and the enjoyment of it with fine friends, for all the blessings of this life, including living as free Americans and participating in Rotary, we give you loving and grateful thanks and praise. We pray you will make us ever mindful of the needs of so many others, and to always have the courage, wisdom, strength, and ability to respond to those needs. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you, Mark. Well, thank you, Tim Baker, for pinch-hitting on the greeting today. Thank you very much. And a special good to see you, Jimmy Kelly. Good to see you. Good to see you, brother. Okay, so I just want to remind you of our membership campaign and the little blue cards on your table that you're supposed to be looking at and giving some thought and discussing around your table. So just a reminder of that. Last week in our board meeting, we were notified of a couple of member resignations. So it just kind of underscores the need for this membership campaign. When I thought about this, I thought, you know, what is it that we're missing in our club? We have this great club. We do a lot of great things. We meet in this beautiful facility on this beautiful river. So we have a lot of things going for us, but what are we missing? And I thought, you know, I have not been a member very long of this club. When something went wrong at my house, I really don't remember what it was, but it involved water. And I thought, what am I going to do? Coach was out of town, my brother was out of town, dad wasn't available. And I thought, surely in our club, we have somebody that knows something about plumbing. And so I went to DECDB and I looked it up and I found Terry Vereen. And bless his heart, he sent somebody out right away and it was taken care of. And not long after that, Dad needed a new accountant. And this was before Doug Benefield joined our club. And so I asked, we didn't have an accountant, so I asked Patty, you know, of an accountant in another club. So I turned to my Rotary family, looking for somebody to help me in these situations. So what are we missing? Well, in our current club, we don't have anybody to talk to about early life, the beginning of life, daycare, the end of life, elder care, assisted living. We don't have anybody to talk to about our trees or our pools, wedding planning, which is fresh on my mind, and all the things associated with that. We don't have anybody to discuss beer and wine with, which is a nice topic, or baseball or football. So we have a lot of things that we could bring to our club, a lot of great topics and a lot of folks that we could bring into our club that would make our lunch table talk and our social discussions more fun and would help us. It would increase the fun in our club when we go about doing the service that we want to do for our community. So please do take a look at the blue cards. They're just intended to spur discussion and to give you some things to think about. And think about folks that would make a good addition to our family of Rotary here at our club, because we can only continue to offer service to our community if we continue to grow. So please keep that in mind. So with that, we have some pop-ups. So Mike O'Brien, would you come forward, please?
Thank you, President John, and good afternoon, Rotarians. So Tom Snyder's done a great job with the Blipmobile is out in the parking lot today. Judy yesterday or last week did a wonderful job covering all those exemptions and the availability and opportunities for all of us to give life. And so it's a wonderful opportunity. There's literally open slots from now until up to 2 o'clock. So please, please, please consider, support this club, support the community, give the gift of life. And it's painless. I'll be there in about a half hour. I've done it each time. I really encourage my fellow Rotarians to give the gift of life. It's a wonderful thing this club has done. Tom, thank you, Judy. Thank you for your support. So we'll be out there and we need your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Tom and Judy as well. If you haven't seen Judy, she's hard to miss because she's wearing a blood red shirt today. Reminder to me. Larry Daly, you want to give us a pop-up on the weekly level?
Okay, yeah. Good morning, Rotarians. Thank you. If you look at your table, there is a flyer about the raffle we're going to be doing. President Ike is standing back there smiling because he says he's going to win. So, but we'll be doing this every week. We need a couple of volunteers to stand at the door and sell tickets. Okay, if not, it'll be me and Tim. Okay, so but I appreciate your support. Tim brought to my attention that this can be fun. You know, our raffle can be fun. Okay, right? So we're going to have fun. Thanks for everything. One other little thing I wanted to talk to you about was I met a young man here in Jacksonville recently. His name is Robert. Okay, and Robert had this idea about giving neckties to young people who can't afford it. So, you know, and I thought, man, that's a great idea. He's like 19 years old and he has this energy, you know, and then I said, man, I know I've got a couple of neckties in my closet that I haven't worn in a long time. So if you think about it, you know, you feel led, you know, like, please, I'd like to, you know, just maybe gather some neckties and give them to this young man, Robert. And he's very energetic to get those ties out. Okay, so thanks for everything. I appreciate the honor and privilege to talk to you.
Thank you, Larry. So Larry, can we just bring the neckties to the next couple of
Yes.
meetings?
Yeah. No suspense dates. You know, we can just keep doing it.
Okay, so
All right, okay.
anyone that's retired and is no longer wearing a tie every week,
That's me.
now you know. Give
Yeah.
good expensive silk ties to use, so
Yeah,
my husband has some that he would love.
yeah,
for you to buy.
I thought
Because
everybody.
he's afraid I'm gonna make him go back to work. Thank you, Larry. And the weekly raffle, past President Ike, I think I might win, so watch out. It's directly tied to how many tickets you buy, you know? You only have to buy the winning one. Yeah, but think of how many more chances you have to win, the more tickets you have. Ed Lombard is on his way here, so he's not quite here, but he asked me to announce, which this pains me to announce. I might not announce. Okay, the four-way test says I have to announce this. The winner of the football pool last week, past President Ike. Ooh, that one hurt. So anyway, this week's family of Rotary, Randy Thornton.
Well, first of all, birthdays. Mike O'Brien is yesterday, and happy birthday. That was only birthday this week. Are there any other notes to bring up before I find a joke? It was here. Hang on. Oh, Larry, do you have an update on Phil Boss?
The other night I was at a meeting with the Navy League and Phil Boss was there, you know, and I was obviously very happy to see him. So he misses all of you, you know, he looked good, you know, I mean, he was there and we were talked a little bit and, you know, but sends his love, you know, to his brothers and sisters in the row. Okay.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah.
One last thing, just to end on, last week we talked, I always love famous people and their quotes because they can be entertaining. And last week we did a few by Mark Twain. This week, yeah, I thought I'd do just a few by Winston Churchill, because we all know Winston Churchill is an incredible orator and his speeches enthusiastic and inspirational all during World War II. But his insults, he had a lot of issues with people both in Parliament and in society. And he had some classic insults. These are just a few. One was to Bessie Braddock. I don't know if you've heard these. Bessie Braddock is a member of Parliament back in the 50s. And they were having a conversation one night at a party, and she comes up to Churchill and goes, "Winston, you're drunk. And what's more, you're disgustingly drunk." So Churchill responds, "My dear, you're ugly. And what's more, you're disgustingly ugly. But tomorrow I'll be sober and you'll still be disgustingly ugly." The other, he had issues also. There was a society woman, a Viscountess, Nancy Astor. I don't know if you've heard of her back in England, and they were always at odds. And Winston Churchill, was having a conversation with her one day, and she's going, "Winston, if I were married to you, I would put poison in your coffee." He goes, "If I were married to you, I'd drink it." And this was the final one. The final one, it's always attributed to Churchill, but I can't believe this one's true. It's debatable, but apparently he and Astor were having a conversation, and he challenged her and goes to Lady Astor, "Madam, would you sleep with me for 5 million pounds?" And she goes, "Well, my goodness, I suppose." And then Churchill goes, "Would you sleep with me for 5 pounds?" He goes, "Oh, who do you think, or what kind of woman do you think I am?" He goes, "Well, we've already established your profession. We're just haggling over the price."
Wow, those are good. Thank you very much. Okay, as Sergeant at Arms Carter Rosenblum comes forward to introduce our guests and visiting Rotarians, I want to welcome our Zoomers, because I know we have some Zoomers today, so we're glad you're with us. And remind you that if you can't be with us on any given week, please do join us by Zoom, because we do that every week as well. Carter?
Thank you, President Sean. We do have some visiting Rotarians here today. President-elect from the Orange Park Club, G. Tavan, is here. And Wayne Baker from St. John's Beach is also here. I do not have a Maryland Rotary history today. I did not have time to do the deep research. I need to put that information together for all y'all. But I did think of a joke that the great Bill Howie told me, and I thought I'd share it with y'all. And when I was thinking of the joke, I was thinking of Bill, and a lot of y'all might not know this, but when I was growing up, Bill was a chaperone for our church retreat trips. And I was a teenager at the time, and like most teenagers, I had a pretty bad attitude and like to sleep in. And so in the mornings, Bill, knowing this, would come in and in kind pans. He goes, spoon in a pan, bang it right next to my head and say, "Get up." And the Marines, we were up at 5 o'clock. And that of course pissed me off. But what I did pick up out of it was his relentless positive attitude. And it made me think of so many people in this room that are here today that have been a part of my life, through Boy Scouts, through the church, through school, all sorts of things that inspired me to do more community service, and how we can go out into the community and hopefully inspire more people to do things like that. Now, the joke you told me, and Bill's typical fashion, was a pretty good dad joke. Because does anybody know the difference between the Yabbas and the Yabba-Dabbas? The Yabbas don't like the Flintstones. The Yabba-Dabbas do. The better part of that joke is, I was like, well, that's fantastic. I'll go home and tell my kids. I tell it to them, they give me this big blank stare, and they go, "Who the Flintstones?"
No.
President Sean is going to announce our speaker today.
It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. When Craig Smith heard in late August of 2009 that the Alhambra Dinner Theater was going out of business after 42 years, he immediately decided that he had found a new mission in life. Craig Smith, a Jacksonville native who had built and sold 2 successful companies and gone into semi-retirement, heard about the current owner, Booth, Mr. Booth, decision the Wednesday before the show closed, when Booth's son, Todd Booth Jr., who had been managing the theater, approached Smith looking for a job. Smith's reaction: he wanted to save the Alhambra. I mean, the Alhambra is a Jacksonville institution. Why would you not want to save the Alhambra? He arranged a meeting with Booth. Having attended and enjoyed the Alhambra shows since his childhood, Smith said he didn't want his children to grow up without the theater. And having sold Beach's Limousine and Transportation, which he co-owned in 2006, he was looking for a business opportunity. So in what he termed a crusade, he put together a group of investors who bought and renovated the Alhambra building. Smith's impulsive decision to do that would save the Jacksonville institution, which had helped launch careers like those of future Miss America, Beyonce Fournette, and close the careers of legends like Betty Grable. The theater begins its 57th season this year. Please help me welcome Craig Smith.
Okay, I'm not sure where you read that from. There's a couple of things I need to clarify. Said I was semi-retired. This was 2008. Does all of us remember what happened in 2008? It didn't take long to figure out, I better find a job or I'm screwed. The stock market dropped precipitously, real estate dropped, everything that I was involved in, of course, dropped. So whenever and I've heard that a couple of times, I always just like to set the record straight. So Dane called me and said, hey, I want you to come speak to West Jax, the West Jax Rotary. And I said, man, I'd love to. Because back in the day, before you could flip a coin and get a makeup, or you could go online and get a makeup, or, you know, all the ways now that you can get a makeup, it's not really a makeup. Back in the old days, you had to drive to another club and sit there, and you could scoot if you wanted to, but, you know, most of the time it was good speakers, so you'd sit down and enjoy it. So back in the day, I live at the beach. I drive all the way to the Holiday Inn on Commonwealth. For what reason?
Chicken.
Fried chicken. I drive all the way to come y'all's club to get fried chicken. It was always my favorite. My old partner, Bill Volker, getting 25-year plus Rotarians, remember Bill? And so I used to love to go to y'all's club. So Dane calls it West Jackson. Yes. And I'm like, wait a minute, that Holiday Inn doesn't serve lunch anymore. And he says, oh no, we meet at Timaquana. So I don't think I've ever spoken at this club since I'm on the theater, have I? I looked around and recognized a lot of folks, some I know personally, and some I just know from used to come to your club a lot way back. And I'm not going to point fingers to the old guys because y'all know who you are. And so I was excited to be here. And once I got here, as bitter as I was about the fried chicken, this ain't bad. We could just sit here and talk and enjoy the view, but we don't have a view like this at the beach, just for the record. But old Dick Suttis, years ago, I got up to speak somewhere, and as I was walking by Dick Suttis' table, Dick at the time was 92, I think, maybe a year before the he grabbed my arm and I leaned out for yes, and he said, remember, Craig, nobody loves your voice as much as you do. So I learned my lesson. Don't talk too much. Don't talk too long. Say what you got to say and get off. So that's what we'll do. But I did buy the theater in 2009. It's the funnest thing I've ever done. The reason Dane invited me to speak was I recently several clubs and several businesses, several places, several groups had asked me to talk about COVID and how we survived COVID and kind of the after effects. And so, you know, it's always goes to talk about money and that kind of thing. But in this instance, it's very germane and very important because when I bought the theater in 2009, we, you know, knock on wood, things have gone on pretty good. And we get to 2020 and we're on pace for our biggest year we've ever had going into 2020. Season ticket sales are the best they've ever been. Pre-sales are the best they've ever been. I felt like I put together the best shows that we've ever had in 2020. And so in 2020, feeling emboldened and strong. And I decided about my partners. I had 3 minority partners that were 25, 5, and 5. And so I decided about my partners, all but one. He just really wanted to stay, and he's still with me today. So I bought my partners, and we drive up to those of you on the banking business, the real estate business. You go to St. Mary's, right? Get to save the dock stamps if you go to St. Mary's on a transaction, saves you some money. So you go drive to Georgia. So I drive to Georgia, and again, we've had a record year and things were good. So my partner, if they got half a good brain, they know that, you know, they're not going to give you any deal, right? You're going to buy them out and pay what it's really worth. And so we go to Georgia, and I've finished the deal about my partner. Well, I'm driving home. I think it's February 24th, maybe the 27th. So I'm driving back from St. Mary's, and it comes on the radio and talks about what was it called originally before it was COVID? What did they call it? Coronavirus. I'm driving down 95 and they're talking about coronavirus sweeping Europe and France and China and all this. And I remember saying to my lawyer, I said, goodness gracious, I hope that don't come to America because that wouldn't be worth the flip, considering what I just paid about my partners. We kind of chuckled about it. That was the end of that. Well, we all know what happened March 12th, right? Whole world came to a screeching halt. By the way, I did flash back to the conversation with my lawyer driving back there. And, you know, you go from being full every night, 382 guests, 6 days a week, all of a sudden, crickets, empty, out of business, done. And at the moment, you didn't know how long. You got 91 employees, predominantly hourly employees, but I had 6 single moms, 4 young men with newborns, and all the rest in college and all of them had responsibilities and so we kind of sit around a table and say, how are we going to keep everybody afloat? Because it was everybody, it wasn't just the Alhambra, but it was these 91 folks. Again, particularly single moms, new dads, those folks that really you had to look out for, because that's our job, right? And I know a lot of people don't see it that way, but there was a song in a Broadway show we did, High School Musical, that says, we're all in this together, right? Well, I actually subscribed to that at the time and said, hey, we got to make sure everybody keeps going. So we talked about, doing dinner every night. Everybody could come and bring their family and do dinner and, separate because the theater's so big and spread out. We just talked about all the options for things to do. And one of my folks said, boss, instead of doing that, why don't we sell food out the front door? And people can come get takeout because the restaurants would stay open at the time for takeout. And I said, yeah, that sounds like a pretty good idea. Let's see how that works out. So we put it on our social media. We have a lot of followers on our social media. And the first night, a ton of people showed up. And the second night, a ton more people showed up. And it kept going. By the time we got to Mother's Day, we had 690 show up for Mother's Day. Now, the theater only holds 382 to begin with. So we get 690 coming to pick it up and take it out the front door. Well, guess what? Now all the single moms got to work every day. And all the new dads that work in the kitchen got to work every day. And everybody else, I'd give them gas money if they got low on gas. And a couple of them, I'd go out and look in the car just to make sure they were really low on gas and get me some cigarettes. But those that couldn't work as much, we made sure they had a little gas money. But there was times that I thought to myself, Alhambra may not survive. We may not be after, at the time, 50 years. We just celebrated the 55th anniversary, December 15th. And which I'm proud to tell you, that's older than me, just for the record. And I always love to tell people the theater's older than me, and I want to be there another 55 years. But we were very, very fortunate that people would come support us. But we still had a lot more bills than we had revenue. And the good news is I had always been pretty tight. I grew up with a dad that said, if you can't write a check, don't pay for it. So we didn't know a bunch of people, a bunch of stuff. So we struggled many a night, many a morning. I'd wake up just scared to death how we were going to cover that payroll and what we were going to do and how things were going to be and what point would we run out. Because I knew what we had and I knew there was a day that we'd come to the end. Well, then we got PPP money, right? Hey, everybody's eligible for PPP. And, again, I grew up on the west side of Jacksonville. My dad would beat you if you said you was going to take something for free from the government. He would say he worked for that. This is a true story. I'm 11 years old. We're driving through Columbus, Georgia. And I said to my dad, Daddy, my dad was 25 years in the Navy. I said, Dad, my whole life you talk about Uncle Sam. And you love Uncle Sam. You always brag on him, how good he's been and how great he is and what wonderful man Uncle Sam is. Why have I never met him? Everybody get that? I thought he was a real person. That's how reverent my daddy was after 25 years in the Navy. I found out that day he wasn't, and I've been embarrassed about it ever since. And I told that story way too many times. But so we applied for PPP money and lickety split, boom, PPP money shows up. All right, we got some more lengths of time to go, right? We're in good shape. Well, then they say, okay, you can reopen, but you're going to reopen at 50%. Well, in the theater business, if you're not 67%, you might as well be closed because you're burning money every single day. Can't pay your bills like a hotel. Anybody's in a hotel. So finally we get there. And long story short, been a rough 3 years, been a rough 2.5 years. So about 6 months ago, Brian Barker, you remember the kicker, the punter for the Jags? Brian Barker calls me and says, hey, you ever heard of, is it ERC? Anybody ever heard of ERC? Y'all don't know what you missed. It was employee retention credit, was what ERC was a term for. So Brian Barker says, hey, I think I can get you some ERC money. And I said, well, I don't know anything about it, but I do know that Kim Prescott, Bill Prescott, her husband, worked for Wayne Music for 30 years. And so she works for me and Bill does kind of on the adjunct basis. She said, hey, I looked into it, we're not eligible. Can't make it. So in that 2 years the theater was closed, it cost us about in the 2 years of that struggle, it cost us $2.1 million to keep it afloat, right? But we stayed afloat. Now, we couldn't have floated too much longer, but we stayed afloat. And my dear friend Harry Frisch, who we lost last week, he would always say, Harry's the reason I got involved with the theater, and that's a great story too. I won't go into all of that, but the whole time Harry would have been 97. He says, Greg, if you need money, you tell me. I would never tell him that I needed money because he'd already been way too good to the theater, long before I got there. So it costs a lot of money to keep it going. ERC guy calls, Brian Barker calls. She says, no, I looked into it and we couldn't do it. Again, we got PPP and I think we got 800 and some thousand, something like that. And he says, just let me try. And I said, all right, Kim, get him what you need. She said, I too much work. So I said, give the man what he needs and let him try. So 90 days ago, I get a phone call, maybe 120 days ago now, because I've been asked to tell the story half a dozen times, and so it's been at least 120 days. So 120 days ago, I'm driving back from the island. I get a phone call from Kim Prescott. And she says, are you in the car? I said, yes. She said, you might want to stop at the gas station. And I said, for what? And she said, I want to have a conversation with you. And I don't want you ready.
Oh, God.
And I said, well, what you got to say? And she says, well, she says, I'm pretty hard-headed. She says, but I'll admit that I'm wrong. At which point I immediately pulled the car over because for her to say she was wrong, things are about to get real. And she said, so I get a phone call yesterday. This was on Friday. She said, I got a phone call yesterday morning from Barker's group, and they told me about the ERC. And she said, and she has a little bit of a colorful mouth, so forgive me. She said, and so when they called, I told the guy he was full of shit. And I said, well, I'm sure he was appreciative of that. And she said, well, I thought they were. And she said, and I said, why are you calling me now? She said, because I spent all day yesterday and all day today verifying everything they told me. She said, because I didn't believe them and I thought it was nonsense. She says, but it's real. And I said, well, what's real? She says, the fact that in the next 4 months, we're going to get $923,000.
Wow.
At which point I wanted to kiss my daddy for loving up Sam so good. Yesterday, I took a picture of it. Yesterday, we got the last $245,000 of employee retention credit. Now I thought it was nonsense. Yesterday morning, in the mail from Truist, our bank, we used to use BB&T, now they're Truist. If any Truist people are here, I'm sorry, but that might be the dumbest name for a bank I've ever heard in my life. But I get a thing in the mail from Truist, the bank, saying, hey, we can sign you up for some ERC money. It's crazy how much money the government gave away during COVID. But I'm here to tell you, if they don't give it to the Alhambra Theater don't survive. The best news of the whole story, 2022 was the biggest, most successful year in the history of the theater by 30%. People came. It started Black Friday a year ago. That was really when the world kind of had started to get back into full swing. We packed more people in that theater this year. More people bought season tickets for next year. Scott, of course, they had stopped coming. They started coming again during COVID, in the restriction days. I know a lot of other folks in this room come. I see you there. Some of them I know by name, some I don't. But I'm telling you, there was many a sleepless night at the Alhambra Theater after 50 plus years wasn't going to survive. But the old girl did, and she's strong as ever. Now, we don't have many of the old stars anymore. Either A, they've all got too old or all in their 90s. Alan Alda changed the game. Alan Alda was the star who figured out residual. That's the reason the rest of the cast don't like him. He cut his own deal. Most of the time they would do favored nations in those kind of situations. Alan Alda cut his own deal and didn't worry about anybody else. And so a lot of times you'll see the big mass reunions, he's not there. I know this story because we've had all of them but him at the Alhambra. Now, he never had to come to Alhambra because he made more money than everybody else. But most of the old stars, Barb Reed, she turned 90 this year.
Wow.
Still looks good at 90 years old. We had Barbara, and we had Laverne and Shirley, we had Shirley, and we had Greg Brady, and you name it. Two-time Tim's neighbor, Richard Karn. We had all the old great stars, from back in the day. And now people just come to see the young up and comers that we have. People don't realize how many folks that are on stage at the Alhambra today will go on to do great things in the future. Paige O'Hare, the voice of Belle, if any of you have little girls and you watched Beauty and the Beast when they were little, that voice that did Belle, her name was Paige O'Hare. 5 years before she was Belle, she was at the Alhambra Theater doing Astounding Music.
Wow.
A lot of our kids are on Broadway now. The last Spider-Man, when Spider-Man was on Broadway, was one of our kids. Most of the touring shows that come through downtown have one of our kids on, because it's like minor league baseball. People are working their way up to the big leagues. And so that's what it's all about. A lot of folks don't realize that, but I think it's all local folks. Certainly half the cast is always local, because that's just the way it works out. We have a lot of talented people, but most of the time our leads we get from Orlando. It's been a fun time. We talk about 2008 and realized that I better get my behind back to work. I had sold my company in 06, and then of course 08 happened. And so Mike Pendergrass and the guys at Ray Robinson back then were all buddies of mine. The managing partners were a buddy of mine. And I said, Golly, I'm finding it difficult to get motivated every day. So they said, hey, we got plenty of, back then they had plenty of, now they got plenty of empty offices too, but back then they really had plenty of empty offices. So they gave me an office right down the hallway from Mike. Now, Mike went to college and a brilliant guy, and I'm just a dummy from the west side, from Rolling Hills area, if anybody is deep. See, I see somebody. But so I wound up having an office in Mike's building right down the hallway from him there. And I probably wasn't there 6 months when the theater closed, or when the news came up was closed. I was sitting there talking to Mike and some of the other guys about, hey, I made by the Alhambra. And I can't remember if it was Mike or Guy Farmer, but one of them said, have you lost your DA on mind? Something to that effect. And actually, I heard that a lot. A lot of my fellow Rotarians called me that first morning it made the newspaper. I lost my mind. But it's been the most fun thing I've ever done in my life. It's been so rewarding on so many levels. And I joke and talk about growing up on the West Side. I didn't know what New York City was, and I certainly didn't know what Broadway was. But I remember at 13 years old, putting on some khakis and a blue blazer and some penny loafers and going with my mama to see South Pacific, and thought that was the greatest thing. And I think today is the cut budgets at school, and the kids in school don't have the same opportunities for social things that we did, or for the arts like we did growing up. Again, I grew up on the West Side. We didn't have a whole lot of art and stuff on the West Side. We played in the woods and got dirty, and we had a farm in Callahan, so I spent a lot of time out in the farm. But what culture I got at the Alhambra Theater when I was 13 years old, and it went from there. And so here we are all these years later. I own something that I was a little boy that was important to me, expanding my horizons. And so I believe that it's our job to make sure that place is there a long time to come. I got invited, we did any judges here? I know one former judge, and they did that time capsule in the lobby of the new courthouse, and we got invited to participate. And so I remember putting a package in there and writing some letters. And I remember thinking very vividly how important it was to me for the theater to be there 50 years from now, because at the time the theater was 50 years old. And so I hope long after we're all gone, and maybe they'll come up with some new medicine by then, we can all stay around another 50 years. But if they don't, I want that theater to be there long after we're gone, and creating memories for families, and that's what we say we're in. We're in the business to create memories, because it's a lot of fun. A lot of folks come there with a lot of generations of family, and it makes it a fun place to be on a regular basis. So, anybody got any questions? What time is it? Where are we on?
You're great. Doing great. 117.
There we go. You said 115. Start asking questions. Yes, sir.
Thanks for your time.
What are some of the shows you have coming up this year?
Right now, we're doing Patsy Cline, Gail Bliss. You close your eyes and think Patsy Cline standing in the room. It's amazing. We've had this lady numerous times. It's amazing. I told her yesterday during rehearsal, this might be the best time yet. And this is gonna be her last time. She turned, and she won't kill me for saying it because she's proud about it. She turned 60 on her last birthday. Well, Gail started when Gail was 16. So the opening scene of the show, she played, the 60-year-old lady plays the 16-year-old. And she actually pulls it off amazingly. But, and so we got that, we got Little Whorehouse, Arsenic and Old Lace. This summer we got Beauty and the Beast, Legally Blonde, Jersey Boys. We'll cut out for those of you who don't like, if you saw Jersey Boys downtown, it'll have none of the language in the version downtown. At our theater, but nonetheless, it would still be great. The lead downtown was one of our kids. It went on to be a big success. And Jersey Boys, Miracle on 34th Street, and I'm missing one, so forgive me. But that's what's coming up this year. And we've had the best season ticket sales we ever had. So very thankful for that. Anybody else?
Give us an idea of the cost, man. A ticket for a single event or a season ticket.
So season tickets are about $395. That gets you about anything you want to come to any particular show. It's about $60. That's dinner, show. You don't have to pay to park. How many of you have not been in the theater in the last 12 years? A lot of them. I think you'd be impressed. There's no more buffet. Scott was just bragging. Scott, and it's something, we do a salmon dish that might be the best salmon in our city. And I don't say that braggadociously. I say it humbly. A chef just nailed it, right? And he does a prime rib. I bet I've got 5,000 emails over 10 years about how great the prime rib is. So people love it. So, but it's not a buffet anymore. You get seated at your table and served. And folks really love it. Again, we're 85, 88% most nights. And occasionally we're 100%. When we do the music shows, we do these music tributes. My brother goes to New York and finds the best tribute band you can find. And we pack them out. They sell out typically in 3 or 4 hours when we announce. Yes, sir.
Years ago, when I was at San Jose, social. Yeah, can you talk about, I think it would be a great idea for this jazz. But talk about the group functions.
So we've done a couple of different, some clubs, not downtown, but south side, they actually do it as one of their big annual fundraisers where we'll give them a discounted ticket on the price and then they'll sell them to whoever they sell them to. And it's been a big, and they'll get a sponsor for the bar and a sponsor for hors d'oeuvres and what have you. So that's been one thing we've done. The Rotaract Club at the beach is, I think, was 5 or 6 years in a row. It's their biggest fundraiser of the year. And they do a big toy drive. We same thing. And all my staff say, boss, we're giving discounts at Christmas. I understand at Christmas, you can't beat them out the door, right? I mean, we got waiting lists 25, 30 pages long. We don't do discounts at Christmas, except for Rotaract Club. And that's because I remember being a young Rotarian and how important Rotaract was. And back then it was just really an idea more than anything. We didn't have but maybe one club in town. And so we do a lot of clubs just come as a group and might bring 20 or might bring 80. And come and we'll close off the library for you that evening, and so you can have cocktails just on your own and visit, and then step into the dining room. But and we do a good discount on that kind of thing. Again, I got a soft spot for Rotarians because I've been one long time. So, but we'd love to have you all come as a group. And by the way, I have to tell you on a side note, I speak a lot, and a lot of Rotary clubs you go to now, you walk in and there's 12 people, 20 people. It's so good to still see this club so vibrant and big and because maybe 3 or 4 in town that I've spoke at lately in the last couple of years have had this many people sitting here. So hats off to you all. Congrats for doing a good job. And but we'd love to have you all come visit us. Anybody else? Yes, sir, Joe.
So for people who don't like large crowds, what night, when in the show sequence, when is the best time to go if you don't want to have everybody there?
I hope like HE double.
Good answer.
My bank is certainly hoping now.
So I'm trying to get people there that night. That's what we're doing.
Tuesday would tip, I say that, that's not even true. Folks that are maybe 60, they're veterans, right? They're not rookies. So they know if they go during the week, it's better and service is better and all that stuff. Now on the weekend, we'll have a lot more younger crowd and they drink more and all that stuff. And it really is funny, the difference from show to show, how folks drink. And so I said that one time sitting on stage, and somebody said, a guest who comes regularly, he said, Greg, when you get our age, take too many pills, you can't drink no more. But Tuesdays is typically.
Interesting comment there. Can you talk a little bit about demographics, how young you see people come, how old you see people come, and the higher percentage along the way? You have to say the largest age group.
Okay, so this is no lie. By the way, you're not a peak, are you?
No.
Okay, everybody know Pete the lawyer?
Yeah, GMP.
Is that, does he not look like GMP's daddy? Or brother? You really could be his brother, to tell you the truth. Well, I'm just saying, like, I keep looking at you wondering the whole time I've been up here.
Well, it's an irony there.
That is funny. We had the Cranes in Ponte Vedra. We had Doug Crane and his brother, and they were twins and great guys. But the funny part is when I bought the theater, I think the average age attendee was 102. And now legitimately we're in the 60s. And so we'll do a summer show, Beauty and the Beast, and we'll be in the 40s, but we'll have 4 generations. We'll have great grandma, mom and dad, and baby. And I'd love it. I can't tell you, like, as I walk through the store, walk through Target, walk through Publix, people wave their keys at me because you can get a picture when you come in, and we give you a little 5x7 picture and a couple of keychains. And I'll be in the store and somebody wave their keys at me because they'll say, last picture of my grandma's on this keychain, or the last picture with our whole family together. So that's what we love. So now it's definitely gotten much, much younger. And by the way, I'm being a little facetious, obviously, at 102, but it was legitimately in the mid-70s was the real average age. Now it's legitimately 60 to 62 on average. Christmas, it drops. Summer, it really drops. We just did Chicago and I can't think of the other show now, but it's another younger demographic. And I say younger, right? But not the 50s and 60s, 70s and 80s. And I bet the oldest person in the room was 60 years old. I was amazed at what a young crowd that band brought. It wasn't Chicago, it was the one right after. I can't think of who I think it was. When we do so many of those music shows, they can't keep them all straight.
They're good.
So, but everybody comes, but we pack them into those music shows. Any other questions? I appreciate y'all's support. I appreciate you inviting me. Again, I always kind of cringe to talk about money, but I told the story one time kind of in a private setting, and a guy said, I want you to come tell it at my Rotary Club. And so I did, and they loved it. And then a guy there said, hey, I want you to come tell it to Mennonite. And so I did, and they loved it. And then I've been to 3 other Rotary Clubs since, and all 3 times they specifically wanted to hear about surviving COVID. And so I always hesitate to talk about money, but I'm just glad the theater's still there. I want it to be there a long time. I want it to be there for our kids and our grandkids, and I want it for us to be able to create memories with folks that we may not have a lot to go do together, but the Alhambra is certainly a great place to come do it. So thank you all so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Pat. We appreciate you joining us today and speaking to us, and very much appreciate all you're doing out there at the Alhambra. So thank you. Thank you for keeping the Alhambra here in our community. So, and thank you to everybody who contributed to the success of our meeting today. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you to our Zoomers, to our visiting Rotarian and our guests. Thank you for being here. Please know that you always have a place here in our club, so we hope that we'll see you again soon. To our president-elect who's visiting, good luck to you in preparing for your year as president, and good luck in your year as president. We wish you well. Reminders, next week, our speaker will be Nancy Bernard from the Hope Haven. And we'll start our weekly raffle next week. So get ready to part with some cash, hoping that you win some cash. So, alrighty, Eric Schultz is going to lead us in our four-way test.
Is it the truth? Fair to all concerned. Goodwill and better friendships. Beneficial to all concerned.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to leave you with a quote today. It's one that I used throughout my tenure as DG, District Governor. If it is to be, it's up to me. Think about that. If it is to be, it's up to me. Hope you have a fantastic week and imagine Rotary.